Hi, it's Tony Parinello, the author of Selling to VITO, the Very Important Top Officer. Thanks for continuing to listen to my best-selling book. If you have any questions about what you're learning, don't hesitate to go to vitosalestraining.com and join our VITO community. In the meantime, here's your next chapter. Enjoy.
Chapter 3. Spotlight on the Sales Process.
After selling and training for over 30 years in the Fortune 100, and after consulting with more than 5,000 mid-market selling organizations over the same period, I'm in a position to tell you what amounts to a closely guarded inside secret. Ready? About 70% of the companies I've worked with initially either had no clearly defined selling process or had a process mapped out, but they didn't follow it. What does that have to do with VITO, you, and your sales performance this year, month, or quarter? Everything. The big point is that the ideas and tactics you will encounter in this book, Selling to VITO, will plug and play seamlessly with your current sales process, or serve as your sales process if you haven't had one set up for you or identified for yourself what your sales process ought to be. Before we go any further, let's define a sales process.
A sales process is a series of sequential steps taken over some quantifiable period of time. When these steps are followed, they convert suspects into prospects into customers, yielding a completed sale that puts commission dollars in your purse or pocket and delivers revenue to the top line of the company you work for.
Let me offer a few words of caution. There's a big difference between your sales process and your sales forecast. An accurate sales forecast is a result of having an effective sales process and using it. How about you and your sales process? Are you actually using one? Do you have one that you know is workable but don't use it? Are you selective about the steps you use? As we move forward here, I'm going to challenge you to assume accountability for 4 action steps, all of which relate to your sales process. As you assume accountability for each, please avoid the temptation to say or think, "Hey, that's not my job." Believe it or not, all 4 actions have always been part of your job. Here are the 4 steps.
Step 1. Create your sales process. Step 2. Analyze your sales process. Step 3. Improve your sales process. Step 4. Replicate your sales process as quickly as possible.
Now, let's listen once again to our agreed definition of a sales process. Here's the opening sentence of the definition, which I'd like for you to listen to and follow along with very, very closely.
A sales process is a series of sequential steps taken over some quantifiable period of time.
I'd like to draw your attention to a particular word in that sentence that is critically important. The word is time. In VITO's world, and in yours and mine, time is a precious resource. It may well be the ultimate resource. You and I must always respect the value of that resource in our approach to VITO, as far as our interactions, written correspondence, telephone, in-person meetings, and all of our follow-up. It's been my experience that if I respect time in my own world, which by definition includes all of my sales work, it's a heck of a lot easier for me to understand and respect the value of time in VITO's world. Countless studies have been made about how to save time or increase the speed of various business operations that require time so that a given outcome, for instance, a product, service, or sale, can be produced while reducing investments of time. Increasing the velocity of a process during some specific time frame is also a very popular activity. Examples include speed to revenue and speed to results for the enterprise and the speed to commission we as salespeople can enhance by accelerating our own sales process. Not to mention speed to decision, which is a function of knowing where to spend and invest our time and with whom we should be spending and investing it with.
Veto rule number 4. Because time is so valuable, vetoes don't treat all potential business relationships equally, and neither should you.
Your time, your organization's resources, and your revenue forecast must reflect your most intelligent use of time with various people in different business relationship categories. Identifying and understanding the individual elements of your organization's current sales process means identifying the various groups that make that process possible. They typically fall into 6 categories.
6 important categories.
Suspects are individuals or organizations who fit some pre-qualification filter or list of criteria, whether that's a profile developed by your marketing department or your own qualified set of criteria, which I call the template of ideal prospect, or TIP, TIP, about which you'll hear more in an appendix at the end of this audio book. Prospects are those individuals or companies that have already been contacted by some method and who comply with the criteria necessary to become customers, business partners, and or distributors, and whom you are currently in dialogue with. The key word here is currently. Most salespeople have a fairly loose definition of a prospect. Some actually consider a prospect to be anyone I spoke to over the past 6 months about the possibility of working with us. Customers currently buy from you. Here again, the key word is currently. Most salespeople have a fairly loose definition of a customer. Some actually consider a customer to be anyone who ever bought anything from us. Vetoes, however, know that a customer is someone who is providing contributions to the top line and doing so right now. Use Veto's definition of a customer over any other. Business partners not only buy from you currently, but also prosper from their relationship with you in a way that clearly surpasses what your product, service, or solution does for them. That means, for instance, that you might share critical knowledge, strategic resources, leads, prospects, or even customers with a business partner for mutually beneficial reasons. Distributors are individuals or organizations that take your products, services, and or solutions and add some direct or indirect value. They may even take your name off and put theirs on it and resell it. Advocates can also fall into one or more of the above categories. This is an individual or organization eager to see you succeed in your sales efforts and willing to help you sell. Over the years, advocates have also been called inside coaches or sponsors. Take a moment and do a reality check on your sales forecast. List the primary contacts and their titles in each one of the selling opportunities in your forecast or pipeline as of today. Categorize everyone who is currently in your sales forecast against the definitions we've just spoken about, and then get a piece of paper and write what you come up with.
Birds of a feather.
What did you find out? What kind of titles are actually connected to the income you were forecasting from your pipeline? Were most of your sales opportunities in that third category customers who are already buying from you, or were prospects the most numerous category? Is it possible that you are forecasting most of your income from suspects, people you have targeted but with whom you have not yet established any selling discussion? What about business partners and advocates? How many of those are visible on your landscape? Here's what a healthy mix would look like for most of the salespeople I work with. If your job is something other than salesperson, for example, if you have a base of installed accounts, consider what follows a case study.
Target pipeline numbers. Suspects equal 0%. They don't belong in your sales forecast. Prospects equal 75%. Customers, including business partners and distributors, equal 25%. Advocates equal 50% or greater. Remember, advocates overlap the other categories. They're your cheerleaders within the buying enterprise. When Tony says 50% of your opportunities or greater should be advocates, he means at least half of your prospects and at least half of your customers should have a strong advocate within the organization who's helping you. Now, it's time for a tough question. How close does your sales pipeline come to matching this standard? Pop quiz. Who would VITO spend time with? What kinds of people would VITO reach out to first?
Let's say that a CEO, president, or owner of one of the companies you sell to had to make a sales call that was designed to turn a suspect into a prospect, which, by the way, is not all that rare. Whom do you think VITO would call? What title do you think VITO would set up a meeting with? If you answered another VITO, give yourself a gold star. There's just no doubt about it. VITO would call another VITO. Let's say for a moment that VITO had to make a sales call on an existing customer. Again, it happens more often than you may think. What title do you think VITO would reach out to? Right again, if you said VITO. Now, let's say that VITO wanted to find, develop, and nurture a relationship with an advocate. What title do you think VITO would reach out to? There's a pattern emerging here. Of course, VITO would call another VITO. I guess it's true. Birds of a feather really do flock together. Which bird did we decide we wanted to fly with? Right, VITO, the eagle. So, just out of curiosity, how many VITOs are in your current sales forecast? I feel like most of the salespeople I work with, the titles currently in your sales forecast probably don't include many VITOs. Not yet, anyway. Here are some titles and numbers from the combined sales forecast of a team I worked with over a 90-day period. Pay close attention to what you're about to hear.
Title: Purchasing Agent. Before selling to VITO, 2,111. After selling to VITO, 2,111. Title: Buyers. Before selling to VITO, 389. After selling to VITO, 389. Title: Managers. Before selling to VITO, 140. After selling to VITO, 140. Title: Directors. Before selling to VITO, 21. After selling to VITO, 21. Title: Vice Presidents. Before selling to VITO, 8. After selling to VITO, 600. Title: C-Suite. Before selling to VITO, 58. After selling to VITO, 97. Title: President. Before selling to VITO, 0. After selling to VITO, 152. Title: CEO. Before selling to VITO, 0. After selling to VITO, 38.
Did you take notice that none of the relationships at lower levels were sacrificed after the selling to VITO training? The true definition of selling to VITO means that you proactively engage VITO without ignoring any other players in the network of influence and authority. Hey, that's a real critical point for all of us to kind of hold hands and chant at the same time. When we sell to VITO, it's without ignoring anyone else in the network of influence and authority. In other words, selling to VITO says we proactively include VITO in our sales process.
VITO rule number 5. When you fly with VITO, everybody else in the organization follows. No cop-outs.
If you want to make your sales process work more effectively, and by that I mean make it deliver bigger sales and bigger commission checks to you in a shorter amount of time, you've come to the right place in this book. Here is where you'll learn exactly how to pull that off. Be personally accountable for each and every step in your own sales process. In other words, show the same accountability that VITO would.
VITO rule number 6. Be accountable for your own sales process.
Of course, you must know your sales process in order to take VITO level responsibility for it. If it's your process, you must know what's going on within it, period. There must be no cop-outs, no room for excuses, no room for rationalizations. You either know the process or you don't. You either execute on that process or you don't.
Right now, before you go any further in this audio book, write down each step of your own current sales process on a piece of paper. Don't omit any steps, even if you sometimes skip them in an actual sale. If you need to do it to generate revenue, make sure you write it down. Analyze your process. VITOs have a keen sense of what's essential and what's excess baggage in any process, including the sales process. You should too. Having reviewed thousands of sales processes over the years, Tony can attest that the quickest way to find out whether a given sales process is as effective and efficient as possible is to see what steps salespeople consistently ignore. For example, if the same 3 steps are being skipped over again and again by a given sales team, those steps are not needed to generate revenue. People who still invest time, effort, and energy in those steps are making bad investments. Take a moment now to show your sales process to another salesperson on your team. Make sure this is someone you really respect, someone with a lot of experience and current success selling for your company. For now, steer clear of your manager until you see how close you are to following the ideal sales process. As you talk to your respected colleague, factor in the following questions.
First, are there any steps your colleague thinks you're missing? Second, are there any steps you should be skipping? Specifically, are there any unnecessary elements of the process you're now being asked to perform for the sake of habit or internal political reasons? Elements that don't actually generate revenue? For instance, are you being asked to get a physical copy of each prospect's most recent annual report just so you can stuff it into a prospect folder? The most important numbers and words in an annual report can be obtained straight from the horse's mouth while you're building effective business rapport with VITO. And these days, just about every annual report is available online. You can get access to all of them quarterly, including interim managers' reports filed with the SEC, just by going to www.edgar.org. Third, are there any steps that are typically ignored or blown off by your prospects? For instance, demos, presentations, proposals, loaner equipment, site visits. Finally, are you being asked to fill in meaningless blanks in the obedience to your contact management system? For instance, is there a point in the formal sales process where your computer is demanding that you fill in a blank, proving to your manager or whoever that you understand the needs of each level of the buying influence? Some variation of this generic request has appeared in every formal sales process I've ever seen. In reality, that all-encompassing request for information can and should be distilled down to a few intelligent questions sprinkled throughout the entire sales process. It shouldn't be a single step at the beginning of a discussion or anywhere else for that matter.
Go talk to a respected colleague right now Then create a revised sales process on a piece of paper. Do not continue with the book until you understand and are ready to assume full accountability for your own sales process. Remember, this is not your company's sales process. This is not your manager's sales process. It is your sales process. Welcome back.
For the next 6 prospects that you pursue, use your modified sales process plan with the useless steps eliminated. See what happens. Don't tell your manager or anyone else what you're doing. They might fire hose your plan. Does your new sales plan improve elapsed time to obtain the first sale? Ease of obtaining the first sale? The number of steps you had to take to get the first sale? The number of steps your prospect had to take to get the first sale approved? The size of the first sale? The number and amount of pre-sales resources required to make the sale? In other words, does it reduce your company's and your front-end investment in the sale? Use your modified sales process that you just created and track your own results in the following areas. Number 1, did you get the sale faster? Number 2, did you use less pre-sales resources to get the sale? Number 3, did you have fewer hassles with your own infrastructure? And number 4, did you have more fun?
After you answer these questions, share your results with your sales manager and/or your vice president of sales. Why? Because you're a team player, that's why. Improve the process.
You're not finished, of course. You'll be improving this process, not just for the period of time it takes you to listen to this book, but for as long as you sell professionally. VITOs have a responsibility to implement constant, never-ending improvement. This commitment requires them to look in every corner of their business for ideas to make whatever's being done be done better, faster, and less expensive. You must make the same commitment.
Control your sales process. VITOs are control freaks. You should be too. The secret to establishing control of your sales process is to assume full accountability for it at all times. Apply the following formula on a daily basis. Control plus accountability equals greater control. As you've already learned, your sales process is your responsibility, not anyone else's.
The essence of any process is that it's predictable and yields a certain result when followed. When any step of an effective, proven process is forgotten or implemented too late, the results change. You want to fly where VITO flies? Good. Continue thinking like VITO thinks. VITO has a process for just about everything at VITO Incorporated. If something goes wrong, VITO asks 2 critical questions. Number 1, what, if anything, did the process overlook? Number 2, what did I, you, or we overlook in the process? You must ask the same questions. Whenever a potential sale disappoints you, you must ask yourself those same 2 timeless questions. VITO wouldn't rationalize, complain, or make excuses. Who has time for that? Follow VITO's lead. Eliminate the following thought paths from your sales process.
Why do these things always happen to me? It's the economy, marketplace, prospect that killed the deal. Our price was too high. The competition snagged the deal away from us at the bottom of the ninth. We lost the deal because of politics.
You know, as well as I do, that all of these are cop-outs. Take a moment right now and write down on a separate sheet of paper the real reasons for the 5 worst sales disasters you've experienced. What did the process overlook? What were you overlooking in the process? Be brutally honest with yourself. Hey, that's what VITO would do.